Hey, this is Allen Robinson from the Jacksonville Jaguars, and you're listening to the Fantasy Footballers Podcast.
Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers Podcast, coming to you from the FantasyJocks.com studios with your hosts, Andy Holloway, Jason Moore, and Mike Wright.
Hey-o! Welcome in. Tuesday, March 21st.
Hit him with the hey-o.
Hey-o!
Hey-o! All those Johnny Carson fans out there.
You know who's saying hey-o? Marshawn Lynch.
Oh. Maybe.
Hey-o! Take those cleats down. Get into Oakland.
I mean, to my knowledge, Marshawn Lynch has said nothing.
If you want, welcome to the show, by the way. If you want just a wonderful microcosm of the entirety of fantasy sports and why it is exceptional, you need only listen to the way Mike Wright acted about Rex Burkhead on the last show, and the way that I am about to act about Marshawn Lynch, because it is unequivocally bias from owning him in my Dynasty League. I mean, the excitement level would be there regardless, because I would put Marshawn Lynch on my team over and over and over and over and over again.
You don't got to worry about him no more.
But we're going to talk about so much today. I am excited. This is a fantastic
show.
Fantastic episode. The Fantasy Footballers back again. Mike, the Fantasy Hitman, is here. At FF Hitman.
I'm here. We're going to talk some free agent winners and losers.
Speaking of which, Jason Moore is here, our grammatical entrepreneur, as I call him.
And I think I would
forging
fall
new paths
squarely into the winners bracket as an analyst this week.
And I am Andy Holloway. You can follow Jason at JasonFFL on Twitter. Follow me at Andy Holloway. Very excited. Wanted to let everybody out there know, some people do not know, what our schedule is for this show for the upcoming months. So I wanted to let people know we're a year-round fantasy football podcast. We're twice a week until July. In July, we bump it up to 3 times a week. And then in August, oh, man, the gasoline goes in, and we get going 5 times a week from August through December. And so it's going to be a fun year. And to me, this show, in many ways, if 2017 is a magnificent ocean, we've jumped over a couple waves now, and we are wading in, and
we're knee deep.
Yeah, we're knee deep.
I go with it. It's like we're doing a 1,000-piece puzzle, and we've completed a good portion of it as we're looking towards the NFL season, the draft.
We're close to having.
See, you're
the border
switching
done.
metaphors on me, and I wanted to do something with
mine was better.
I wanted to go to the seaweed that had washed on shore. We passed Jamal Charles and Adrian Peterson, and we were diving into the free agent.
Crabs are scurrying away.
Crabs.
Everyone's running away from
crabs.
Charles.
All right, so quick question of the day, guys.
That could have gone wrong.
Quick question of the day. Look, we predicted, all three of us, that Colin Kaepernick would land in New York. New York has signed stopgap quarterback Josh McCown to a 1-year guaranteed $6 million contract to pair him with Chandler Catanzaro for just an unstoppable offense in New York City. So, where does Colin Kaepernick end up?
Oh, man. Well,
Jim Harbaugh very publicly came out yesterday and said he believed Colin Kaepernick could be great. Spike Lee came out earlier in the week, said that Colin Kaepernick had a deal done and in place and was basically a done deal, and then it fell apart. Colin Kaepernick may end up right now, I mean, him and Jay Cutler, it's like musical chairs and there's none left.
Well, I have
very
heard,
few left.
I have heard his lack of a job is fully related to the president.
We're not going to get into that. We're not going to get into that. Yes, I did hear that.
I have a couple of I think good landing spots for Colin Kaepernick. At this point, there's pretty much no starting job left in the NFL. You could make an argument, I think.
Well, there is.
Cleveland.
For Cleveland.
Houston has a job open.
Yes, Houston does have a job open, but I believe they have said that they are not interested in Colin Kaepernick. Cleveland, I think, would be a good spot, right? They shot, at Robert Griffin last year and said, "Can he do it?"
They shot at him?
You shoot in the dark.
You took a shot?
They took a shot at Robert Griffin.
No, not at.
With.
With.
There we have it.
It's very
I believe
very different than shooting at somebody.
that Colin Kaepernick could catch the bullet in his teeth and
gosh.
succeed with Cleveland. But I'm going to throw out one different one that I have not heard that I think would be an interesting fit as a backup, and that would be the Pittsburgh Steelers. They have an old –
They brought Landry Jones back already.
Yes, yeah, but I mean, look who they backed up. Colin Kaepernick is a good backup in the sense that when he comes in and teams haven't game planned for a mobile running quarterback, he can come in and win a game. Kind of like what they did with Mike Vick, right? When they had Mike Vick backing up Ben Roethlisberger.
That didn't go very well.
No, it didn't.
No, it didn't. He was over the hill and past his prime. But I think I'm going to throw that out as another possible.
Did you guys hear the news that Big Ben is leaning towards coming back in 2017?
Yeah, off season.
$46 million will do that to you.
You know who's on the side of Big Ben pushing him over, so he's leaning? It's Lev Bell and Antonio Brown and
Mike Tomlin.
They kind of need a quarterback. So, all right. Did you have a prediction for where Kaepernick? I mean, Cleveland makes sense to me as a one-year guy. If they were going to groom somebody, they draft.
Yeah, I would be actually surprised if Cleveland picked him up. At this point, he's just going to have to settle for a backup job.
Yeah, same with Cutler.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean,
Houston?
Houston's still an option to me for Cutler if they lose out on the Romo sweepstakes, which that thing has stalled out. I mean, Dallas is playing some hardball over there.
As Mike alluded to, we're going to talk free agent winners and losers. Each of us have selected who we deem our biggest winner, biggest loser, and then we'll get into some of the other storylines. This is going to be fundamental to your draft plan here as you look at new rosters around the NFL, players landing in different places, and there's that two-sided aspect where they displace somebody in the new team, but then they have a role. Alshon Jeffrey, Torrey Smith. How does that impact Philadelphia? Kamar Aiken signed this morning.
Woohoo!
But let's talk about some news first, and then we'll get into the winners and losers.
News and notes from around the league.
Marshawn Lynch.
Do you have something ready for
No,
this?
I don't have something ready for it.
Boo.
I mean, I thought about, someone told me to go, I'm wide awake.
Let me just say this. For those of you who have not been able to reside at Fantasy Footballers HQ, Marshawn Lynch has been 98% of all discussion back and forth, especially between Andy and Mike, as they come to fisticuffs over whether or not he's going to come back and whether or not when he comes back he will be any good. I mean, you have a true polarization here.
It's because Mike's so unreasonable.
Of course it is.
Just
Mike,
ask
why is
Mike
it?
the percentage chance he believes currently that Marshawn Lynch comes back.
Mike,
0.5%.
0.5%.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
it's very unreasonable.
Andy, you would put your percentage at?
I'm right around 60%, a little over 50-50. I think he's coming back.
All right.
And really, it's quite exciting. I mean, he's 30 years old. Jason found an incredible statistic.
I feel like he's 30 years old for about 2 more weeks.
Yeah, that's how age works. Every year you get another year.
He'll be 31.
I'm
when
currently
season
32
starts.
years old.
When we speak
When I
about
have a
football
birthday-
players, you talk about how old will they be during next
No,
season.
you do that with my players. You do not do that with your players. But here's the deal with Marshawn Lynch. And I happened to be woken up very early by my children. And I happened to see early talk of Marshawn Lynch and pick him up in our Dynasty League. And, you know, the thoughts of he's an Oakland guy, the thoughts of him being behind that offensive line on a great offense, just signed Jared Cook, added Cordero Patterson, Amari Cooper, Michael Crabtree, Derek Carr. The pieces they have there, how well they played last year, obviously before Derek Carr was injured, and it just kind of threw their season away. It's intriguing. It's exciting. They haven't brought in Adrian Peterson. A lot of people thought that was going to happen. They have 2 kind of undersized guys in Dwayne Washington and Jalen Rishard. It's an interesting storyline. It's an exciting storyline.
Yes.
It's one that would impact fantasy football, too. It's not just some peripheral non-story. If you have Marshawn Lynch available in a league where you can sign him today, you need to do it.
Yes, and while I sit at 0.5%, if he was on the waiver wire in your dynasty leagues and you have a burner spot, I would absolutely throw him on my bench because that I still have a 0.5% chance of hitting the lottery. But to me, he just He's not coming back. He's going to be 31. The guy has had throughout, even when he was prolific and just dominating people, he was having major back problems. If you don't recall, during the heyday of having Marshawn Lynch on your squad, what was great was you knew you were going to get touchdowns, except you knew every single week he was basically a game-time decision, and it was rough that you had to be ready for that every single week.
Sounds like a guy that needs a year off from football, Mike.
Yeah, but
he had back-to-back-to-back top 5 issues too.
Oh, look, he was great. He was fantastic.
So
but he's older, and the thing is, I think Marshawn Lynch is. We talked about this in the studio. I think he is a tremendous troll. He likes to get people talking about him. He is. Actually, I think an extremely intelligent person. Did you know that he trademarked beast mode in his early 20s when he was on the Bills? Like,
nice.
This guy has forethought. He has a business-like mind.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And this is, I don't have it at 95%. I don't think it's a done deal. I don't think it's guaranteed. I do. Well, let me ask you this. Do you believe Oakland is trying to acquire Marshawn Lynch for this season?
I believe.
Do you believe on the Oakland side they want Marshawn Lynch?
I believe that they're probably kicking the tires. I mean, there are so many things to get through. First, he has to unretire. Then he becomes immediately a $9 million cap on the Seahawks. The Seahawks have to play ball and cut him. We have, according to an ESPN article, the Seahawks can cut him with no dead cap money.
It's because there's no guaranteed money left in the contract.
But, however, then they are in the legal right to go after to recoup some signing money.
$2.5 million.
Which they could have done when Lynch retired, but they said, hey, you served the team.
Yeah,
we love you.
Oakland might take care of that.
Maybe. I don't know if that's allowed, but it's just there are a lot of things that have to happen.
But to answer the question, I believe Oakland is certainly going after.
Let me digress for a second because we are jumping right into the middle of the conversations that are going on around the studio all day long. On Friday, ESPN's Adam Schefter reported the Raiders are considering luring Marshawn Lynch out of retirement. This proceeded through the weekend. You had Jordan Schultz of the Huffington Post reported that Marshawn Lynch asked for his release. On Monday, Peter King said that he really wants to play for the Raiders. He also wants to do great things for his foundation in Oakland. If you know Marshawn Lynch, he was always a two-city guy. He was Seattle, and he was in Oakland. He lives in Oakland.
Mr. Oakland.
And then Ian Rappaport tweeted on Monday that this groundbreaking report that unretiring is realer than it's ever been, and it's Raiders or bust. So there's not Marshawn going back to play for Seattle to join that backfield. To me, the fact that Eddie Lacy signed there, and then the timing of this, you talk about an intelligent Marshawn Lynch. He's picking a spot if he is trying to come back, putting Seattle in a situation where they just can't possibly take up 3/4 of the remaining cap space on Marshawn Lynch's dead money.
I'll say that that Huffington Post where they talked about that he asked for his release, that was also disputed by another team-related source.
That said it was just a personal visit?
Yes, and that he just visited. He did not ask for his release.
So much smoke.
There's a lot of smoke this year. It may not have been this much, but there was plenty of this chatter last year that Marshawn was, in fact, going to come back. It's a fun thing to talk about. And for me, the point is, while I would add him, like I said, for this miracle jackpot lottery, so to speak, I think even if he comes back, I don't think he's going to be able to get it done.
He's a guaranteed lock at a top 10 for me. And I've seen other analysts that are high and other analysts
you're looking at one who is not.
That are low on Marshawn
No, you're
Lynch.
High.
Marshawn Lynch only ran for 3.8 yards a carry, and his last year was Seattle, so he was breaking down you could say
exactly 7 games.
You could say that you look at Oakland and they kind of spread. They didn't give the ball entirely to Latavius Murray. Would they really give the ball entirely to a 31-year-old Marshawn Lynch? They might give him a little bit of rest with Jalen Rishard and with DeAndre Washington. However, you have Latavius Murray, who is not nearly in any way, shape, or form as good a running back, who is basically an RB12 type of player with Oakland year after year. If Marshawn Lynch goes there after a year of rest, remember when Ricky Williams had his years of rest and then came back when he was 32 years old, he was a RB7. I think that if Marshawn Lynch comes back and is part of that offense that has a lot of points being scored and he is a goal line machine Marshawn Lynch is a lock for top 10.
That is where I was transitioning to ask the fantasy implications. Jason, you found a stat that despite Marshawn Lynch taking a year off.
Well, not credit to me. This was Nathan Janke, unless I'm pronouncing that wrong, from Pro Football Focus. And this is unbelievable if you haven't seen this. Marshawn Lynch has had 245 players miss tackles on his carries in the last 4 years, okay? The next closest player in that time over the last 4 seasons is DeMarco Murray, who's not even close, with only 179. Marshawn Lynch did not play last year, and the year before that didn't play half of it.
And he's still dominating.
And he's still 50 plus, almost 70, up on second place.
Yes, so when he was playing,
I don't want to
that
hear
much better than everybody.
Mike, I do not want to hear arguments about injury with Marshawn Lynch from you. You are the biggest Dante Moncrief and Jordan Reed apologist in the world, and those guys
don't forget
take every
Keenan
other
Allen.
Sunday off.
Don't forget Keenan Allen.
Brooks, I want you to handicap this for us. What's your percentage chance that you believe? How much are you reading into the smoke? What's your percentage, Brooks?
I'm right around 40.
You're at 40. Mike's at 0.5. Jason is at.
I would be about 40. I think it's less than 50-50, but where there's this much smoke, there's usually a little bit of
All
fire.
right. The NFL's overtime period could be shortened from 15 minutes to 10 minutes in 2017. It's proposed to the competition committee. This is based on the fact that they believe it's a great disadvantage when teams have an overtime period that goes over 10 minutes and have a Thursday game the next week. It makes sense, could lead to more ties. You certainly had a number of games that went, 22 of the 86 overtime games went past 10 minutes. So that would stand to reason. I mean, teams might take more chances, and so you might not have 22 ties next year.
But you
might have 5 or 6.
Would you like to see the college rules implemented in the NFL?
I don't have any problem with that. I really don't. I mean, I'm okay with that.
Where everyone you get the balls. I don't even know what
you get it. I think
at
at college you get it to 25, and both teams get a possession, and then if it goes to another overtime, you just flip flop again.
Yeah. You just keep doing it until.
Yeah, I mean you probably get you could have 3 or 4 overtime games.
I like it,
but actually I think in college they force you to go for 2 in the third overtime.
Yes.
So yes, yeah, Kamar Aiken has signed with the Indianapolis Colts.
Yeah.
Oh, no! Boo!
Mediocre signing of the week.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. He got pushed out in Baltimore last year.
He did.
He was productive when he was the last man standing in 2015. He heads to the Colts. I tweeted about it this morning. I think he helps Andrew Luck in as much that Andrew Luck no longer has to throw the ball to Philip Dorsett as often because it's always a 1 in 3 shot that Philip Dorsett catches it.
Yeah, this is the new GM saying, okay, I have to make sure I do not draft a wide receiver this year at the NFL draft. We got to go sign someone.
His support group said, now you go sign Kamar Aiken right now.
Yeah. No, Kamar's good. He had a good year 2 years ago when injuries in front of him gave him the opportunity. He's not overtaking Dante Moncrief or T.Y. Hilton, so he is not in himself going to be super fantasy relevant. However, he is a really good piece should Dante Moncrief, who's been injured many times, get injured again or T.Y. Hilton go down. He's a serviceable piece that can step in replacement.
All right. Last bit of news.
Yeah.
The Big Salad is heading to the big city.
He said to the Big Apple.
Oh, yeah.
It's
also a
there's
big,
a
it's
smoothie.
also a big city.
There's a smoothie going on in New York.
Yeah, Shaun Draughn signs with the New York Giants. Added to a backfield with, Bobby Rainey and Shane Vereen and Paul Perkins. So it's going to be stellar.
They were really sad that Travaris Cadet signed as well with the Saints. He re-signed today because they wanted
Benny
all
Cunningham
of
is still available.
Have you heard they're saying in New York?
No.
Every down is third down.
Oh,
there you go.
That's the.
We need more third down backs.
But yeah, so not very exciting news.
Yeah. All right. Well, look, let's get to the big show, which is the winners and losers for free agency. Free agency changes everything for players' value going into draft season. We are going to cover all of this and much, much more in the Ultimate Draft Kit. So if you've heard us talk about the Ultimate Draft Kit before, go get it at ultimatedraftkit.com. You're never going to have it be as cheap as it is right now on pre-order. It's going to launch here in a couple of months. And the feedback last year was awesome on it. You know, we've put years into making the ultimate draft kit, and you know, we say you don't win your championship at the draft, but you build a foundation for it, and you can certainly lose it there. But during the championship season last year, the amount of people that wrote in and said that they credit the ultimate draft kit for getting them to the championship was really awesome. It was great to see a lot of #FootClan titles. That's our goal. Get you a #FootClan title.
We got video profiles, our risk ratings, our top 200. We have exclusive with Matt Harmon's reception perception. Going to break down the top 50. Our tiers for how we do our tier-based drafting, of course, sleepers, breakouts, busts, values.
So much good stuff.
It's
UltimateDraftKit.com. Get it now.
All right. Free agent winners and loser time.
Everybody, that's what I'm talking about, guys. We've made a great effort so far. Let's just keep it up.
That's right! We can't have anyone freak out there, okay? We've got to keep our composure. We've come too far.
It's always exciting to find out what Mike is cooking up for our drops. Yeah, I mean, we can freak out a little bit if we want to. We can pick some of these. Let's freak out over a few of these.
Yeah.
All right, the big winners here. Look, to me, I'll kick it off. I'm just gonna, you know how I feel about Hugh Jackson.
Yes, this is true.
Best Wolverine. No. Isaiah Crowell is my big winner of free agency. You know, you look at Isaiah Crowell last year. There was a lot of doubt in my mind about what he'd be able to do in that situation in Cleveland with little to nothing at the passing game. But 24 years old, had a great season, averaged 4.8 a carry last year on 198 carries, 7 touchdowns, 40 receptions, which was a big piece of the puzzle. But look, in the offseason, Cleveland has shored up that offensive line. They signed 2 excellent offensive line pieces, Kevin Zeitler from Cincinnati and J.C. Treader from Green Bay, both ranked in the top 10 at their respective positions at guard and center. They gave their other guard a contract extension, Joel Bitonio, and Joe Thomas is still there. So this is a top 10 offensive line, and this is a top 10 offensive line on a team that successfully ran the ball last year, on a team that wants to run the ball, where Hugh Jackson has come out and already said before the offseason, look, Isaiah Crowell, he's part of our future. He's part of what's going to make this team move. And so for me, I put my money where my mouth was. I went out and I traded for Isaiah Crowell very quickly. I made a transaction in our Dynasty League, moving Paul Perkins, getting Isaiah Crowell onto my roster. I want a piece of him. I think the opportunity is going to be there. And so I think it extends a little bit to Duke Johnson as well. If you look at Duke Johnson's numbers last year, they were impressive.
They were okay, yeah.
I mean, he actually was 4.9 a carry. So when he got an opportunity to run the ball, it all added up in Cleveland on the running game. So do we know who's going to be quarterback? I don't know.
If they can get Colin Kaepernick, that helps the running game as well. Those read option type of quarterbacks open up lanes for running backs to hit the edge.
And the thing about Isaiah Crowell is he's not going to be drafted over a number of big names. I mean, it's just an impossibility. You're just not going to see Isaiah Crowell with that team go above a number of guys. So I think he's a value. I think he'll end up in our draft kit as a value. And to me, he's the biggest free agent winner. So
yeah, what they've done to the offensive line in free agency is gorgeous. I mean, they have to have a top 5 offensive line. You can't argue that they're below top 5. So certainly, all right, I'll take it over next. My biggest free agency winner this offseason so far.
And I'm shocked by this, by the way.
You are?
I was not shocked, but surprised.
Okay. I hope you're pleasantly surprised. I think it's Terrelle Pryor. And this is why. Terrelle Pryor last year, okay, as really his first year as a wide receiver in the NFL. I mean, that was
of course.
I'm sorry.
Of course.
Not his first year as a wide receiver in the NFL. The first year as a wide receiver. Like he wasn't wide receiver in college. This was his first year saying, "Hey, let me try this thing out." He went over 1,000 yards, and he did that with garbage throwing him the ball. Literally piles of garbage was launching footballs out from behind the center, he was able to catch 77 of those garbage-flung balls.
I feel like this is the second time that you've used a garbage-related analogy like that. You watched a lot of film on Pryor.
Yeah, I spent yesterday kind of investigating.
I trust you with the garbage comment.
Oh, man. Some of the passes were just – it wasn't even fair. I watched every snap of Terrelle Pryor's from about 4 games and tried to get different quarterbacks, RG3 and McCown.
Cody.
The great
I'm
McCown,
just picturing
Cody
the
Kessler.
toxic crusader being the person throwing him the ball.
So in order to go for 77 and over 1,000 with 4 touchdowns, and he also rushed a touchdown finished with a good fantasy season in his first year as a wide receiver. I wanted to see, is he a talented freak, or is it just because he was like the only option in Cleveland? And there was a mixed bag. I was surprised how he did not he didn't go after the contested catch quite as well. I noticed that. I talked to Matt Harmon yesterday, hit him up, and was like, hey, what's your insight? Have you scouted him out? And he has. All of that information is in the Ultimate Draft Kit coming up. But what Matt Harmon has found is that while he isn't that great at the contested catch, he's really good at the slant routes. And I saw that too. When he went inside and you get him running and you catch him in stride, he's a hard guy to bring down. He's 6'4", runs a 4.4 40. And so with him going now to the Washington Redskins, where they run a lot of slant routes, and you got Kirk Cousins who can actually be a good NFL quarterback, throwing him the ball, and you have over 2,000 yards and 135 receptions and 7 touchdowns that just left in Pierre Garcon and Deshaun Jackson. I am not saying, okay, well, obviously not all of that. I'm not saying Terrelle Pryor comes in and is therefore a beast and is great, but I'm saying the opportunity is 100% lined up for him to do that. So we get to find out, is Terrelle Pryor really great? He is my biggest winner of the offseason. He's going to – this is a true – you talk about Alshon Jeffrey going on a prove-it deal. No. This is a prove-it. You are going to be able to say, I am a top wide receiver, or I'm a guy who is a quarterback who is playing wide receiver.
And he reportedly took less money and a shorter deal from Washington to get out of Cleveland. So, I mean, he's betting on himself. I as a fantasy player, like when receivers bet on themselves. Maybe it's not the smartest thing for the guy, lock up that financial security, but I like that he will take the chance of having a huge year. Maybe he'll get a better contract going into next offseason. My biggest winner,
214 targets, by the way, between Garcon and Deshaun Jackson leaving that roster.
Yeah, I mean, Kirk Cousins almost had 5,000 yards. He's been one of the most accurate quarterbacks the last 2 years.
That being said, Terrelle Pryor 141 targets last year. Does he hit that total?
Likely.
Okay.
Likely.
That would be more than
Very
Deshaun
close
or Garcon. So.
Yeah, but Washington doesn't Cousins does not target hog people. I mean,
yeah, the ball's going to be spread around.
You might think he does because of what Jordan Reed has done at times, but they spread the ball around. My biggest winner is a guy who did not go anywhere. In fact,
same with Isaiah Croix.
Yes, and he said sayonara to his teammate Brandon Cooks. Willie Snead, I got the need for Snead again, everybody in New Orleans. Look, Willie Snead's rookie year, 69 receptions, 984 and 3. He almost hit that 1,000 as an undrafted free agent. Last year was disappointing for what I was hoping for Willie Snead, but that was,
I think, more for fantasy owners than for the perception of the Saints would have.
Absolutely. It was because I was expecting a big fantasy year from Snead, but Michael Thomas came in and established himself quicker than I thought Thomas would as a rookie. But last year, 72 for 895, 4 touchdowns. Brandon Cooks is gone. Last year, that's 117 targets, nearly 1,200 yards, and 8 touchdowns.
But Mike.
Yes, voice of public opinion.
But isn't Ted Ginn going to just come in and take over that role?
What's the Brandon Cooks role? The every down role?
17 targets?
No, he'll get his targets.
17 targets, maybe.
And he'll have because much like Washington, the Saints spread the ball around. But you know what? There's a lot to be spread around when Drew Brees is your quarterback.
Over under 82 receptions. 82 receptions for Willie Snead.
I'll take the over.
That is a really
good number, but I will take the over. And here's the deal with
I
Drew
agree.
Brees.
I take the over, by the way.
Since 2010, his worst year, Drew Brees, 4,620 yards. That's his lowest yardage since 2010. And, in fact, that was 2010. Intermixed in there is 4 seasons at over 5,000 yards. The guy constantly throws up in the high 30s of touchdowns. There is
When you
enough.
look
And Willie
at-
Snead's the number 2 now.
Yeah, when
Yeah.
you look at yardage, like records in games, consecutive games or things like that, usually Drew Brees is at the top of most of those record type things, and then second place is usually Drew Brees. Like when they're consecutive streaks, it's like, oh, he's first place, and he's done it twice better than anyone else has ever done it.
104 targets last year for Willie Snead. I could see that going up.
Yeah.
And he's a reliable wide receiver. You look at Willie Snead, I'm not going to be looking at him in fantasy and saying, boy, I think I'm going to get 8 or 9 touchdowns out of Willie Snead.
No.
But I'm hoping for 85 receptions. I'm hoping for over 1,000 yards and 4 or 5 touchdowns. Other winners. We're going to identify some other winners of free agency. I'll kind of basically throw some names out at each position, and if you guys have somebody you want to comment on, jump in, and then we'll get into our free agent losers who we think took the biggest fantasy hit in free agency. But at the quarterback position, free agent winners that we've identified, look, Carson Wentz, you added Alshon Jeffrey and Torrey Smith to that offense. Jameis Winston added Deshaun Jackson.
Perfect. It's a perfect mix for for Jameis Winston.
Yeah.
Mike Evans lines up on the left. Deshaun Jackson lines up on the right. And
Perfect fit.
And it was noted how poor Jameis Winston scored his passer rating throwing to the right because they didn't have
because he was throwing to nobody.
because they didn't have someone who could get the separation. So this is a just one piece, but still a big time upgrade for Jameis Winston.
Tom Brady. Tom Brady gets an upgrade. Adding Brandon Cooks, he may be
Brady-
the only player that gets an upgrade by Brandon Cooks being added to that roster.
And Tom Brady, he's had it good for long enough.
Yeah, the funny thing is they have historically struggled to put big-name wide receivers around him. They take shots with different guys, with whether it's Brandon LaFell or Chris Hogan or different players. Obviously, really not holding Tom Brady back, but now you get Brandon Cooks. Mike Glennon.
Certainly a huge winner
when you
in the sense that
start, I guess.
From zero to hero.
I didn't see that name in there.
For guys like Mike Glennon and Brian Hoyer, they are winners in free agency because they're fantasy relevant, right? You play in a 2-quarterback league, they're a starting quarterback, they're a streaming candidate, and without those free agency signings, they're not. Carson Wentz, to me, of the quarterback class, is the guy that I'm most excited about what happened with free agency. He reminds me, when I look at the throwing motion, it reminds me a lot of who?
Blake Bortles.
Blake Bortles, yeah. I mean, he's got a lot of...
Reminds me of Castles and Coasters doing the loop-de-loop.
He's got a lot of Blake Bortles in him, and it was Blake Bortles who went from 11 touchdowns in his rookie year to 35 in his sophomore
So are
year.
you saying it's a
I'm
good
calling
thing?
for... No, I'm just saying... I'm saying I see a lot of similarities in those two quarterbacks. You add an actual good wide receiver in Alshon Jeffrey and more weapons in
Great
Torrey
wide
Smith.
receiver.
Sure. But you give him guys that can catch the ball.
That makes sense. He would defend Alshon Jeffrey. He loves injured
guys.
players, unless
Except
Marshawn Lynch, who's really never been injured in his career. But go ahead.
No, Alshon Jeffrey is a great wide receiver, and so Carson Wentz, look, he was drafted to be most people, I would say the majority thought Carson Wentz was the better quarterback over Jared Goff pre-draft.
This guy did.
Yeah, no, I know you did. I know most analysts did. They said Carson Wentz should have been the number 1 quarterback taken. If he's really that good and you give him these weapons going into year 2, you could see a guy who is probably going to go undrafted in all
30
single quarterback leagues.
3,700 yards, 16 touchdowns isn't going to get it done in fantasy. Last year's numbers. You put some weapons behind him. I think it's going to take another year or two before you get anything
I think so too.
exciting.
But he doesn't really have excuses this year, though.
Nope.
True.
Well, yeah, I mean, second year. That's a good excuse. Wide receivers that we deem winners in free agency. Pierre Garcon heading to San Francisco. Mike Wallace back in Baltimore. Robert Woods heading to Los Angeles to play for the Rams. And Rishard Matthews and Tajay Sharp. Wide receivers still in place in Tennessee. They didn't sign anybody big. And then Corey Coleman I put down there. I believe Corey Coleman can take a step forward with good health this year in Cleveland, a good running game. So who's the guy, the biggest from that group that you want to talk about?
For me, the guy I want to talk about real quick is Mike Wallace.
Yes.
Because we didn't talk about him when he signed that much because this show was coming up. And he was almost my biggest winner in the sense that I just want to say for fantasy purposes, this is a guy who will be very, very relevant for fantasy wide receivers next year. This past year, he finished as the wide receiver 24 in standard leagues. That's a wide receiver 2. That's good. He was reliable for most of the year. He loses Steve Smith. So his need and targets and all of that are probably going to rise, but let's say they just stay the same. Let's say next year he's a wide receiver 24. He's currently being drafted as the wide receiver 54. Like, that. Those things don't make
That's because nobody likes
sense.
Mike Wallace.
Right, exactly.
His family, his friends, teammates.
Poor Mike.
Nobody
the
likes
coaches.
him.
Mike
No.
doesn't like him. He's very depressed.
I have disparaged him a time or two.
Yeah, I mean, but numbers are numbers, guys.
Yeah.
The wide receiver 24 on an offense that throws the ball just incredible. The high quantity of
And
Joe Flacco
who
passes
lost their wide receiver 1.
who made Kamar Aiken relevant at one point in time, who doesn't have Steve Smith, who knows what we have in Rashad Perryman. I don't know if Rashad Perryman can catch 5 passes in a game.
Mike Wallace,
he might be capped at 3 and he just runs off the field.
Mike Wallace is no longer capable of having a top 10 year, but he's a wide receiver 2 this year. That's what I see. And so if you can draft him as a wide receiver 5,
Right. I mean,
that's
he's
pretty good.
It's the starting wide receivers are him and Perryman. So and like Andy said, Joe Flacco threw the ball 1 time less than Drew Brees last year. That put him
crazy.
second in the league.
Yeah, I love Pierre Garcon for this season specifically. Kyle Shanahan coming into that offense. Garcon had a very good year last year, but you got to remember he played with Kyle Shanahan. He had do you know his target total with Kyle Shanahan in 2013?
Yeah,
I know that he led the league in receptions.
184 targets.
Yep.
113 receptions.
Pretty good.
I mean, is he reliable? That's pretty much his middle name. He's a reliable, not a high. He's never had more than 6 touchdowns in a season in his career. And you're not going to, I doubt he surpasses that in San Francisco. But
yeah, we actually have
I love him in PPR. I traded for him in my league.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's going to be, just like Mike Wallace, one of those type of players that has a better fantasy season than where he's drafted. And we have a really good article that just went up detailing Kyle Shanahan and Pierre Garcon. So go check that out.
Where can I find that?
You can find that at thefantasyfootballers.com.
Yeah, he's got
great website.
He's got that San Francisco stink on him right now. Fantasy players aren't going to want anything to do with that.
It's funny you said that because I was telling somebody I was trying to trade for him, and literally all they wrote back was "ooh." like it didn't matter the situation. Like there could be a contract that requires San Francisco to give him 5,000 targets, but the only thing that person was going to say was,
here's a
"Ew."
perfect example of what we truly believe. Andy, when you were going after Pierre Garcon in a trade and
Oh,
somebody
my
said
gosh.
you, what did you find out was happening?
You were trying to trade for him.
Yes, I was. Both of us were independently, unbeknownst to each other, about a week and a half ago, going after Pierre Garcon because he is.
Yeah, you know what I did after that? I went and shifted my efforts
To Mike
Wallace,
Wallace,
so I
who
didn't
I-
have to compete with you on Garcon. And 5 minutes after that, I
Yeah.
find out you're trying to get Mike Wallace.
Well,
Because we both buy into these as big-time winners. Mike has been on the Rishard Matthews train, and Tennessee has done nothing thus far, although they may in the draft.
Yeah, they still could in the draft.
But even if they do in the draft, it's different than if they brought in an Alshon Jeffrey, an experienced veteran, than it is to sign. I mean, look at Tajay Sharp and all the flash of preseason that did not materialize into fantasy value or him being the one or anything like that. When they started throwing to Rishard Matthews, they started winning games. They started scoring, and I love the take that Rishard Matthews has subtly won. I mean, you're looking at value here in the winners category. But we need to move on. We need to get into the running back winners. Guys, Melvin Gordon.
he's a winner here because his Danny Woodhead has moved on to Baltimore, and that's the big piece of the puzzle for Melvin Gordon was volume. The efficiency was down. I'll try and pull up the numbers here really quick, but of the top 14 or so running backs is in fantasy scoring, he's the only one who didn't rush for 1,000 yards. So there was concerns up there, especially when you have a guy.
You have 13 games or 14?
I'm pulling it up right now.
I think he had 13. I believe he
but
missed 3 games.
he was a touchdown machine, and that was saving his fantasy production. But now you don't have to worry about Danny Woodhead coming in and stealing receptions, and he should be the guy again. So he had in 13 games he had 997 yards, and And it was the top 12. Of the top 12 fantasy scoring running backs, he's the only one not over 1,000 rushing yards.
How many in the top 12 had less than 15 games?
1, 2, 3,
Less than
3 or
15?
4.
I struggle with Melvin Gordon's stat lines because I don't know what to make of them, to be honest with you.
Yeah, they're inefficient.
They're
and yet
inefficient, but he was just like, I mean, you just watch the games, and it was just, okay, we're going to give the ball to Melvin Gordon. We're going to give the ball to Melvin Gordon. We're going to pass the ball to Melvin Gordon. He's going to get it on the goal line. He's going to get it all day long. The team wasn't very good. The team struggled. I think Phillip Rivers has led the league in interceptions 2 of the last 3 years. Their offensive line struggled. I just don't know how much to read into the efficiency, specifically with Melvin Gordon, because there are players that just get the rock.
Yeah, the opportunity, and that's what we're talking about here. The winner is the opportunity should still remain on top for Melvin.
You know, the Giants signed Shaun, brought back Shane Vereen. Paul Perkins is a winner to me because they have not brought in a veteran. They have not brought back, Rashad Jennings.
They brought in a veteran.
Well,
they brought
not
in
to
a wily veteran.
That's the perfect kind of
starting.
signing, though. I mean, you bring in Shaun Draughn, it's almost like a tap on the butt to Paul Perkins saying, all right, we may go into the season with you kind of frontlining a committee. I mean, that's the best case scenario here. I don't think he's a 3-down guy this year.
Right, so you give
not with Shane Vereen there.
You certainly give a bump up to Paul Perkins, but I agree he is not a 3-down guy. If you're bumping him all the way up to being like, hey, he's one of these top starting running backs, I don't go that far. You know who has a bump up to me, and we have thrown plenty of shade on him over the last year, which was accurate. But it's Todd Gurley. I know you love Todd Gurley, Andy, and while we have enjoyed throwing some shade, his offensive line was atrocious. It was not, poor. It was horrendous. And they have made some good signings. They got Andrew Whitworth. They get to move Greg Robinson around on that offensive line.
Oh, man, he was a disaster.
So I believe that that's going to help Todd Gurley significantly.
Lions running backs, whoever they might be, their offensive line has improved. They're one of the winners of the offseason in general. I think the Lions needed to shore up that line. Obviously, I still don't know if it's going to benefit Amir Abdullah or Theo Riddick more or unnamed drafted running back that I think is going to head into Detroit because they haven't been able to stay healthy. I mean, last year you had to lean on Dwayne Washington. That did not work.
Yeah, you can't go year after year after year. I mean, this is now year 3 where if they go in and say, hey, Amir Abdullah's our guy. We drafted him to be the guy. We believe in his talent. You're going 3 years on a guy who hasn't been able to play for you. This is the NFL.
That's not going to happen.
You get a chance.
He will
and then
not
maybe
get the
you get
key.
a second
He doesn't
chance.
get the keys.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think they're going to hand it over to him.
And then, of course, we would be remiss if we did not bring up possibly the biggest winner of life in
I'm
general.
surprised this was not your biggest winner of free agency.
We are talking about Rex Burkhead. And we have a note down here that
I call
says,
him B-Rex. He's B-Rex.
There's a note down here that says, it seems that Bill Belichick was, in fact, interested in 27 for 119 and 2 touchdowns.
That was when you were asking if we were interested and we mocked those specific stats. Yes, I'll agree.
Meanwhile, the best coach in the history of the NFL sees something.
It's funny because I was wondering, does Bill Belichick play fantasy football?
No, he plays.
Yeah,
we were laughing because you pitched those stats like they were fantasy gold.
Yeah, the opportunity for Rex Burkhead, if Rex Burkhead is able to take over the LeGarrette Blount, he's a different type of player, but if he's able to take over the role of being the first and second down, the short yardage guy, he's going to be super valuable. And then to almost bump that up, you were already excited, but I think it's significant that they let Tyler Gaffney go. They just waived him, and that was last year when I was on LeGarrette Blount. I was a little bit worried they seemed to like Tyler Gaffney. He's a spark freak, and now they let him go. And so it's the Dion Lewis, James White, and Rex Burkhead show. The problem is we just don't know who, but he's certainly a winner.
Is there any chance that LeGarrette Blount's back in New England still?
Yeah.
Please.
Yes. There's absolutely chance. That's why he's not my biggest winner, because while I'm still, the fumes are still carrying me through the clouds on the Rex Burkhead signing, I still understand that there's a percentage chance that this goes nowhere.
Did you see Dion Lewis his quote was, "Obviously Rex Burkhead is a great player because Bill Belichick brought him in." That was just his description of Rex Burkhead. Real quick, tight end winners. Lance Kendricks was cut from Los Angeles, so Tyler Higbee steps into a situation that's, not really a free agency move. Jack Doyle, Dwayne Allen was traded. They didn't bring anybody else in at tight end.
And he was
cash
re-signed
money.
for a lot of money.
Yeah, so biggest losers.
Nothing.
The biggest losers. I got to let Jason lead this one off.
All right.
Blah, 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 blah.
We're not getting there. This is much more, if I'm starting this up, it's a...
Blah, 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 blah. Is that an explosion?
That was the explosion. There was a car bomb on the Rawls Royce.
Oh.
The biggest loser of free agency
Ouch.
to me is Thomas Rawls. Thomas Rawls has gone from, we were just talking about Amir Abdullah. Look, they gave him the shot, but this is the NFL. You don't get forever to prove it. Thomas Rawls came in his rookie year, and he really impressed. And so last year they gave
How
him
did he have the opportunity to impress?
Oh my goodness. Are you going Marshawn Lynch injury? All right.
I hate you so much.
So Marshawn Lynch gets
I
injured.
don't like
Thomas
you.
Rawls goes in. He goes ham. And so they go the next year and they say, we're going to give Thomas Rawls the keys to the
He went
kingdom.
ham when Lynch was having a really bad year, right?
No,
Okay.
he was having a decent fantasy year, but was injured. Anyways,
I'll stop.
No, you won't, and we know.
No, I won't.
I'm
so-
just sitting here on Twitter just trying to find a new glimmer of Marshawn news just to throw in your ugly face.
Thomas Rawls had the opportunity. He was injured. He could not get it done. They go and they sign Eddie Lacy, and this is a sign saying, look, Eddie Lacy, they're paying him money and bringing him in to be the first and second down player. That was Thomas Rawls' role. To me right now, Thomas Rawls is a very, very valuable handcuff now, and that is garbage. That's very little to me. I don't think, let's say all three are healthy, I don't think you're ever going to start Thomas Rawls. And so his value has gone completely away from me. He's in my Dynasty team. I was trying to trade him before news broke. This is like, I've got two guys on my Dynasty team, Thomas Rawls and Frank Gore, that I've been trying. I'll unload for anything because I think both of them are going to be worthless.
Public
in about
service
a minute.
announcement.
Yeah.
If you want them,
Come and get
them.
It's not going to cost you much.
I think that there's a chance that Rawls could still emerge from the backfield because
With all three healthy? If Eddie Lacy's healthy?
Yes. What is healthy for Eddie Lacy?
Just
you mean
meaning-
is he injured and cannot play, or is he overweight and ineffective? Because there's a possibility of that too.
Even that.
Yes, I do think there is a chance that Thomas Rawls could emerge. But he's no longer in this category of you're not keeping him, you're not drafting him in any place where you're expecting it. I think he could stumble into that again because he's been very good before, and he ended the year very good. He runs like he wants to get hurt, and he succeeds. That's basically what happens. For me, my biggest loser, it's Thomas Rawls. But I'm gonna go with
Mike.
I'm gonna go with,
He just spent 30 seconds defending Thomas Rawls.
no, I spent 30 seconds saying I think there's a chance he stumbles into that still.
By the way, he's the biggest loser.
He is the big.
offseason.
Well, he is. He had the first. You look when you're a starting running back, and now you're not. Hello. All right, Julian Edelman. I'm going to go with Julian Edelman as the loser. I could just kind of globalize and say pass catchers in New England in general are going to be damaged. Malcolm Mitchell or Chris Hogan for sure, or even not Gronkowski. Gronkowski's going to be fine, but Julian Edelman, to me specifically, it worries me because he did have a half a season last year where you were questioning. You were waiting for him to come along in fantasy. Now you have somebody, I think they brought Brandon Cooks in specifically to be the next Edelman in that role. Play out of the slot, not just be a deep threat. He's somebody that can work underneath. To me, this hurts Julian Edelman because I think what you look for and what you love in Julian Edelman is 7-8 catches every single week. Every single week.
So are you saying specifically this year, or are you just talking long term?
I am. I think if you draft Julian Edelman wanting last year, 7-8 receptions a week, I don't think you're going to get it. I just think there's so many mouths to feed. I think you're going to get it some weeks, and some weeks you aren't. So you can't just add a piece like Brandon Cooks. And, and Brady's not going to have 150 more targets to add to the list. Gronkowski's going to be back for a few games at least. You got Dwayne Allen. You have an emerging Malcolm Mitchell who was great. You have Chris Hogan, who was good. They talk about bringing Danny Amendola back, and you have Brandon Cooks in the picture. I just think it's a lot of mouths to feed.
Yeah,
it's why I don't like Brandon
agree.
Cooks more in New England than I did in New Orleans.
I agree.
So, anyways.
That there are a lot of mouths to feed, but I don't think that they throw Julian Edelman away this year. Next year, maybe, but it just the Patriots playbook is notoriously hard to get. They are it's all about timing and getting in sync, and Julian Edelman and Tom Brady have that. They're not just going to say, okay, well, Brandon Cooks, you're a better athlete, so just it's your job now. So I'm still all in on Julian Edelman.
All in?
Yes, still all in on Julian Edelman.
Do you believe
year.
Julian Edelman is over under 5 touchdowns?
5 is an excellent number. I would.
If I had to take an over or under, I would go under if I had to.
Yeah, me too.
I probably.
He had 3 last year.
But what did he have the year before? In limited,
7.
Yeah, and that one's limited games. So it's
it's a tough
touchdowns
situation.
are very hard to. Julian Edelman, you're not hoping or you're not thinking I'm going to get 8 touchdowns. You're thinking I'm going to get 8.
Well, would you rather have the best valued Patriots wide receiver? Would you rather get Malcolm Mitchell and for an 8th, 9th round pick, or Edelman in the 4th or 5th round?
It's probably still Edelman for me.
Okay,
Anyways, so back to my biggest loser, Kenneth Dixon. He brought this upon himself.
Yeah.
A 4-game suspension. Meanwhile, the team has added the aforementioned Danny Woodhead
and paid him.
And they gave him a good contract. Whether or not he can really return to form, he's had 2 devastating leg injuries in recent history, but clearly the Ravens believe in him. They have come out and said that his signing was not related to the suspension of Kenneth Dixon. They tendered Terrence West, and Terrence West appears to be the goal line guy. Danny Woodhead appears to be the passing downs guy. Where does that leave room for Kenneth Dixon this year? There's nothing carved out for him, at least.
I think you're going to end up seeing a lot of 3 running backs used in every single game when they're healthy. And so if that's the case, if you're seeing all 3 of them.
That's disgusting.
Exactly. For fantasy purposes, it's stay away. It's the only guy that's really valuable there was whoever's the pass catcher in a PPR league, which will probably be more Danny Woodhead.
Did you guys see that Nick Folk got $750,000 guaranteed in his contract with Tampa Bay? So he could be odds-on favorite to kick second-round pick Aguayo out the door. Because Aguayo only has like $500,000 left on that contract.
That is unfortunate.
I mean, the reality about that is you can't just it's the NFL. We've been saying that all show.
Yep.
You can't just hold a guy because you spent draft capital on him if he sucks. All right, other wide receiver losers to me, Sterling Shepard jumps off the page. When you bring in Brandon Marshall, you thought Shepard would be the 2. He's not the 2, and he's certainly not going to get the goal line attention that he would have received had it been him and ODB. So Sterling Shepard, I don't like his situation. I like it eventually, but this year might be tough. Kenny Stills, to me, could have landed somewhere else and had a bigger role.
Yeah, I don't think this is terrible. He's not a gigantic loser.
lateral.
He's just not a gainer.
You are
and
one pathetic loser.
He could have, like you said, he could have gone to take an established wide receiver 2 role. He chose not to do that, so he's a loser by not winning.
Speaking of losers, in more ways than one, well, Jeremy Hill.
Yeah, these were
Gio Bernard less. I think it impacts him less because he doesn't run between the tackles all the time. His fantasy value will
what tackles?
Yeah, what well said. The Bengals running backs is what I was getting at.
The Bengals offense as a whole has taken a kind of a turd during this offseason. I mean, they're losing guys.
I was really
they're
hoping,
losing important guys.
So I like Andy Dalton. I feel like I have spent the last 5 years as an Andy Dalton apologist. I think he's really good at
football.
He's not one of the elite Hall of Fame quarterbacks, but he's the next tier. He's really good. He's Phillip Rivers type to me.
Sure.
He just hasn't had the weapons. So I was hoping for a good offseason. Instead, they re-signed Brandon LaFell, didn't bring in any other wide receivers, and took their offensive line and said, see ya. And their offensive line, which was, I think, a strength of the team, has just been decimated in free agency. And I believe they've lost 3 pieces from that offensive line. It's going to affect them. It's going to affect Dalton. It's going to affect Hill.
Are they a surprise team to draft a running back?
It's very possible, but I mean, you got to get an offensive line, and I mean, despite losing, like they were dealing with injuries last year, and they were not great for running backs. They averaged 1.44 yards before contact. Running backs did behind that line, which is near the bottom of the league. So I mean, you take that, you've gotten worse now, and Jeremy Hill is a big loser.
I think Jeremy Hill, I think this is his last year of his deal.
He's coming into the last year.
Coming into it, I mean. Yes. Yeah, this upcoming year, I think, is the last year of his deal.
I will double check that, but I believe you're correct.
Very little. Yeah, he has not turned the right direction to me.
So far,
we haven't seen the ascension.
Continuing the losers at the running back and free agency.
Correct. This is the final year of his contract.
As of this recording, I think it is very fair to say Adrian Peterson and Jamal Charles are big losers.
Old running backs.
Yeah, old running backs. I mean, there's just not a lot of love. Teams don't need to commit large contracts, and AP and Jamal Charles aren't going to go play for veteran minimums because they're Adrian Peterson and Jamal Charles.
They will soon.
Right? I know. I mean, it's one of those things where it's like they're going to wait a couple months, try to stay in shape, and then go. I wouldn't be surprised if Jamal Charles ends up signing really late after an injury.
Now
they're both post OTA.
This is a
pre-camp.
Real question. I'm not trying to troll you, but if you are Oakland and you really are saying you have no interest in Adrian Peterson, Jamal Charles, but you would have interest in
you do have interest in those guys.
Okay,
but you don't have it above. Excuse me. You don't have it above your, a guy who's had a year off, who hasn't been injury prone.
Most would consider taking a year off as a bad thing when you are
not running backs necessarily.
Yeah, I don't know that's.
Well, look, I know that
so
story
AP had
of
a year
Williams
off. AP had a year off.
How'd that work out for him?
I mean, wouldn't you agree? Jamal Charles, a year off. I mean,
Jamal Charles has not been back.
Both of those. I'm saying the examples you're bringing up are not guys that have been healthy or played. So they've had as much time off as
the Peterson,
Marshawn Lynch, only not with. They've had major injury.
The Peterson year off, I concede that because he wasn't hurt. He wasn't spending the year rehabbing.
No. I'm saying right now, Adrian Peterson's basically had a year off. Jamal Charles,
but he's been rehabbing though. Like he was hurt. He wasn't just relaxing, staying in shape. There's a difference between rehab and a year off.
The point that Andy is making, I believe, is that you're questioning. Why wouldn't they go after Jamal Charles and Adrian Peterson? But all 3 of those running backs have essentially had the last year off. 2 of them have been rehabbing, which is worse than resting. And so of the 3 that have had the year off.
They're committed to football at least.
You're saying because they're rehabbing injuries.
And they didn't retire.
Yeah, I would definitely lean I would rather my guy be resting. I mean, obviously, if he's not in football shape, I wouldn't want him. But I don't think they would. I don't think that's the situation from what we've heard around Marshawn Lynch.
It's a perfect ending to today's show to be talking about Marshawn, my dear friend. Come on back to me because I really, it's important to me for my life to see Jason's face, especially to see Mike's face and to see Brooks' face. I mean, all 3 of you have been really dreading the potential return of Marshawn Lynch simply so that because of my gloating potential.
You're misreading the situation. There's no dread over here because it's 0.5%.
There will be. All right, that does it for today's show. We appreciate you tuning in. Check out the Ultimate Draft Kit at ultimatedraftkit.com and check out our fantasy football community. Come join in the conversation with us and 2,500 plus other listeners that are just outstanding. You can submit your questions. Discuss league formation, discuss commissioner issues, talk about whatever you want to. Join some great leagues.
The people on Twitter who are like, man, fantasy football is twice a week. I wish it was the regular season so I could get more. There's more on Join the Foot, people.
I did leave that off our schedule. We actually have a 3rd show every single week right now on jointhefoot.com. So come check it out. We appreciate you listening, subscribing, and everything you do for this podcast, and we'll catch you on Thursday. We'll talk about some good stuff. Hopefully, Marshawn will have his new jersey by then, and we'll be set.
Check out fantasyjocks.com. Grab some trophies.
His
code is footballers. Goodbye.
over and over and over.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Join our fantasy football community on jointhefoot.com and follow us on Twitter @TheFFBallers.